Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Morning. Morning.
Great to see some familiar faces, some new faces as well. Glad the weather worked out in Boston for you.
You're welcome.
It might change in an hour or two, but for now it looks great, so enjoy.
As Mark Twain once said, if you don't like our New England weather, wait a few minutes.
Just wait a half hour, it'll change. What I was hoping to do, and thanks, Stephen, for that introduction. Yes, we are long overdue in spending time with this community and diving deep. That's our goal today, is dive deep into some specific areas of our portfolio, and particularly around some new announcements that we've made. And I know many of you here in the room and out there have questions around our strategy, what Hitachi Vantara is all about, where are we headed, what are we doing in particular areas of the market. We hope to address most, if not all, of those today. And I know from what I've heard, this is a pretty interactive environment, and so please bring on your questions. Happy to answer them if we can. My goal to kick things off this morning, because this is, again, a deep dive, is just to provide some context on Hitachi Vantara, who we are, and also put into context where we fit within Hitachi Limited. We are part of a global conglomerate, as you're aware, and I want to help you understand our role within the overall Hitachi Group, and fundamentally what we're working on and where we are going. Oops, let me go back for a sec. Secondly, I do want to talk about the launch of Hitachi Vantara as a company last September. There have been some questions around why we went about doing that, what has happened subsequent to that announcement and that launch, and what our priorities are. So we'll get into that a bit. And then finally, this thing really wants to keep going forward by itself. We'll get into a high-level review of the portfolio. But again, I'm just going to skim over that at a high level so you understand all the pieces. And then the rest of the team will get a deeper dive. Now, wanted to start with a look at the Hitachi Group. And these are all of the revenue segments, as we call them, across the entire conglomerate. And so what you see here, automotive systems, construction machinery, these are discrete products that we build. Now, we go to market in different ways, and I'll talk about that, and that's through our business units. But this comprises the roughly $90 billion of annual revenue for the company. And we, Hitachi Vantara, fit within that information and telecommunications systems business, which is roughly a fifth of the entire revenue generated by the company.
What's social infrastructure?
Social infrastructure is primarily, our transportation systems fit within that context. It can also include what we are doing in some parts of the world. We're actually building hospitals, we're building helping build cities, and so on and so forth. So that does comprise some other elements of the business here, but that's really essentially building infrastructure around the globe.
Thanks.
One of the other things that I wanted to add is that Hitachi Limited has been going through quite a bit of change over the last decade as well. We were comprised of hundreds and hundreds of companies. We've been shedding off non-core businesses over that time, and there's been a tremendous focus on profitability. Our stock reached, or earlier this calendar year, its highest point ever. Obviously, things have been changing in the global markets in the last 4 or 5 months. But the business has been evolving and trying to drive more profitability. And one of the other key focus areas for Hitachi, and this is also where Hitachi Vantara fits in, is to expand our footprint globally. Historically, the majority of our revenue, over 50% of it, has been in Japan. And what's been publicly stated over the last number of years, including this year, is that we want to increase our global revenues to be over 50%. Actually, starting this fiscal year, we're in our fiscal 18 right now. And so these are some of the macro level changes and things going on within the business. Now, one thing that I want to add before I get to the next slide is that these are products and solutions that we build in different business segments within the company. Now we go to market through what we call our BUs, our business units. We used to have 12 business units across Hitachi. We've consolidated that down to 4 key areas. One is urban, which relates to social infrastructure that we just mentioned earlier. We have industrial/water. We have energy/power. And then we have a more commercial-oriented business unit around financial and healthcare. And so that leads to this next slide that I wanted to share with you all. And so where does Hitachi Vantara fit in? And I'll talk much more about Hitachi Vantara in a moment. But if you start at the bottom here of this stack, we build essentially IT technology, software, hardware, services. And they underpin solutions that we take to market directly as Hitachi Vantara through our Hitachi Consulting organization, or those front BUs that I mentioned earlier, those industry-specific business units that I referenced. Those are effectively go-to-market engines, or through our very sizable ecosystem of partners that we have worldwide. Now you see this thing in the middle called Social Innovation Business Enablement. That is where we leverage expertise and technology and services capability within the company to co-create, to create customized capabilities and solutions for enterprise customers, for cities, for countries, for municipalities, et cetera. And so this is an enabling capability. You'll hear about social innovation quite a bit when you hear Hitachi. That is an enabling capability that takes technology and solutions such as Hitachi Vantara's to the market. And so what we're going to do now is peel a little bit more of the onion and talk about Hitachi Vantara, and then throughout the day we'll dive much deeper into the actual solutions and products.
So is that a framework, or is that a group? Is that, I'm a little confused, SIB?
This is designed to show you how the pieces fit together.
Right.
And so that's a company at the bottom,
Right.
Hitachi Vantara. And the way we go to market is through ourselves.
Yeah.
Right, consulting, et cetera, et cetera.
The middle layer.
The middle layer are actually distributed capabilities throughout Hitachi.
Okay.
Right, and so
Marketecture.
we tap into expertise that may exist throughout Hitachi to help deliver social innovation solutions.
Okay, so the overlay across the business is called
Correct.
SIB.
Correct.
So Hitachi Consulting is not part of Vantara?
We are part of the same holding company, as I click through, called Hitachi Global Digital Holdings. But it is a separate entity, separate management team, separate CEO. It is not part of Hitachi Vantara.
And the four front-end BUs are not part of Vantara either?
They are not part of Vantara. They are a go-to-market vehicle for us, as they are for all the other businesses within Hitachi that I showed you on the previous slide.
And they're organized
They
vertically?
take vertical solutions to market.
It's an interesting contrast to GE that obviously tried to softwareize itself and it's become a train wreck. And so the strategy here is to have that software layer underneath and let the Hitachi companies and others compete in the marketplace with that core infrastructure, so allow the two to develop independently.
Right. So one of the business units, which vary by industry vertical and vary obviously by geography, will come to us and will come to other parts of Hitachi businesses to create a unique solution, potentially for a commercial enterprise or for a city or a government, et cetera. And so examples of that include a very famous example from Hitachi is the rail system in the UK. That was effectively a socially innovative solution that comprised historically Hitachi data system branded IT infrastructure, but it was tied into control systems as well as the entire rail system that we sold the UK as well. And it involved a fair amount of consulting and design, et cetera. So a lot of this social innovation enablement was done. That was a multi-year project, multi-billion-dollar program. You've been reading about it likely in the press for years. And so those are the types of examples where all the pieces come together. Now, we as Hitachi Vantara, we spend a good portion of our time directly selling our technology because we have a direct sales organization and we have an ecosystem of partners to take our IT solutions to the market. Okay. Again, this was just to show you how we fit within Hitachi and all of these other pieces of Hitachi and businesses within Hitachi relate to each other. Because I know sometimes it can get confusing. We are a large global conglomerate. Now, this is to set up the next section. One of the things that obviously is a hot topic in the industry right now is IoT, Internet of Things. And so what we feel is, and we absolutely recognize that, we believe it is not necessarily a market in and of itself. It's more of an architectural disruption. There's operational technology, right, which includes machines that have sensors and telemetry and creating data and managing themselves potentially or need to be managed. And then there's IT, obviously. And the IT portion of Hitachi's business, obviously, is spearheaded by Hitachi Vantara. Anything and everything to do with information technology, we are the leader and the driver within Hitachi for that. And so what we feel is interesting and unique opportunity for Hitachi is leveraging our expertise and over 100 years in building machines and operational technology. We build relatively smart machines in a lot of cases. These earth-moving equipment to the trains to healthcare devices. We have been building artificial intelligence. There's some amount of machine learning that's been going on in those systems, but they've been generating data for decades. Now, how do we monetize that for our customers? How do we leverage the data and the insights that you could derive from that? Well, what we're looking to do and what we've been working on the last few years is how do we marry that with our IT capability, right? And truly offer an interesting end-to-end, what we call edge, right, to outcomes, as well as edge to core solution. And we'll get into that a little bit more so. But the marrying of the two, and the reason we wanted to embark on this is, A, there's a market need because of the types of users and customers that we work with. There is a demand for the marrying of the two capabilities. But also, we do believe we are unique. We have a 50-year-plus IT business. We have a 100-year-plus OT business. And so, in all modesty, we will say that nobody else in the industry has both. They have one or the other, and they're trying to build one piece of it. And so that's the launching point for Hitachi Vantara. And so here's a quote from Dennis O'Brien, who's at Digicel. We're poised to see more progress in the next 10 years than we have in the last 50. That might even be a bit conservative. Now, one of the things, and this is a lead-in into why Hitachi Vantara, we too at Hitachi are going through digital transformation. And so we created this business to also evolve ourselves. We are transforming as well. We are digitizing our entire business. We are actually focusing heavily on enhancing, for example, the customer experience through digital means, through all the different touch points. So our operational and IT infrastructure has been evolving rapidly in the last year and a half. We're also looking at deriving insights from all these industries and businesses that we work with globally to come up with new solutions and capabilities and potentially introduce new businesses into the market. And so we've been going through a transformation ourselves. We've been adding a lot of new talent. We've been moving into new areas. Now, one of the things that I wanted to stress is that a lot of this stuff that we're talking about is not instead of what you have known Hitachi Data Systems or Pentaho for historically. It's additive, right? And so what we're looking to do is making all of this complementary and integrated going forward. And so let's talk about Hitachi Vantara. So we had Hitachi Data Systems, with most of you are familiar with, data storage company for many, many years. It moved from mainframes to mainframe storage to open systems to storage area networks, et cetera. Evolved our portfolio into other portions of the data center, providing servers, converged systems, et cetera. And we moved into object content solutions. We made some acquisitions in that space, particularly here in the Boston area. That's how I got affiliated with Hitachi in the first place. John Chinitz, rock on. So what we also, based on what I just talked about, right, which is this, we're looking at digital transformation and the convergence between operational technology and information technology, and also what commercial enterprises are trying to do. We needed to expand our portfolio and our scope. And so that's when we looked at an acquisition called Pentaho, data analytics, data integration company, a couple of years back. And so we operated that as a separate entity after the acquisition was made. They're headquartered in San Francisco. And then we also spawned, a couple of years back, a company or an entity called Hitachi Insight Group. Hitachi Insight Group was incubated originally within Hitachi Data Systems, and we kind of let it operate separately for quite some time. And that was really our IoT proving ground, if you will. We hired engineers. We started looking at building an IoT platform. That is also the genesis of Lumada. You may have heard about Lumada, which is originally our IoT platform, which we're now expanding its definition and scope. Tim?
Are we going to hear anything about the IoT project that Hitachi has done, Hitachi Vantara has completed? Or is this still forward-looking?
You mean today or
Yeah.
in general? I don't believe we're going to get into that today, Tim, because I believe today's focus is more on data center infrastructure.
Okay. But is there anything you can say generally about the IoT work that Hitachi Vantara?
Yeah, sure. One of the things, like I referenced just a second ago, the Hitachi Insight Group's work was focused on building a platform, essentially tying all the elements together between the machines and sensors, data being generated at the edge, tying it to the core, running some analytics on it, monetizing it in some fashion, and allowing for some actions to take place. And so we focused on the platform. Now what we're seeing, the market is evolving. It's very early days in IoT in general. And again, it's not a market necessarily. It is technology at the moment. And so we're looking at, and we participated in Gartner's IoT platform, MQ, and we were positioned as a visionary based on what they've seen. Now what we're looking to do is we're continuing to engineer and innovate around that. And we're actually focusing on, our engineering team is spending a lot of time with our colleagues in Japan. Again, understanding what's happening on the operational side. And let's select use cases, right, that are most prevalent in the market right now that need an IoT type solution. And so we're looking at, for example, predictive maintenance as an area of focus right now. We work with a lot of companies that have factories, that have trucks, that do a lot of shipping and transportation. They need to predict when something's going to go wrong. It will save them millions of dollars, just at a very high level. That's what we're looking to do next, is how do we evolve the platform and how do we evolve the solution to also encompass the analytics capability that Pentaho brings to the table, right, as part of this IoT stack. And so that's the work that's going on right now, Tim. And what we want to do is take a complete solution and engineer it to some degree as needed as we pilot this in specific industries right now. And so I wouldn't say IoT as a market or even as a technology space is fully mature or fully understood. We're in the disillusionment phase, perhaps, as Gartner may describe it. I think we want to prove out some use cases, but there's a lot of engineering and a lot of focus on that right now within Hitachi Vantara and throughout Hitachi, actually.
Hey, Asim, there's been a lot less focus on pure data analytics and more discussions of AI and machine learning and that sort of stuff. Do you see you guys playing in that space at all?
Yeah, absolutely. On AI and ML in particular, Our R&D labs in Japan spend millions and billions of dollars on that annually. And pieces of that IP is sprinkled across the Hitachi portfolio of products. What we are looking to do, first of all, is tap into some of that and leverage it. But at the same time, there is AI expertise and machine learning capability that's being embedded into Hitachi Vantara as well. And so that's manifesting in the form of some of the capabilities that you're going to hear about in our data center offerings as well. And so the new storage platforms that we announced, last month, I think Bob and the team are going to get into that. We're starting to weave that stuff into data center operations. And one of the things that we talk about, and I think I'll talk about it a little bit later, is how do we create the smart data center? Not only as a concept, but also as an offering from us. And so, yes, the answer is absolutely. And we're hiring even more in that space within Vantara, as well as trying to understand how do we leverage and monetize some of the IP that we have in this space within Hitachi, because there is a fair amount of investment that takes place there.
Sorry, one more. Hitachi HDS used to be the sales arm for the engineering for the VSP, USP. Used to be with Japan. HDS was the sales front end, overseas sales. Mm-hmm. Is that the case for Hitachi Vantara?
Yeah, so I think if you go 25 years back, it was engineering was exclusively done in Japan for our storage systems, our storage platforms. And then HDS was created to take that technology to market globally, commercialize it.
Yeah.
What happened in the last 20 years plus is more of the engineering, product management, and IP development shifted out of Japan into rest of world under the HDS umbrella. And so some of the software that's been developed that runs on top of our VSP platforms as you know them today is not all necessarily engineered in Japan. We expanded the portfolio to go beyond block storage systems, right? And we moved into file, we moved into object, and so we made acquisitions. They were under the HDS umbrella outside of Japan. The engineering of the core block storage systems, hardware, and the, I guess you could call it, storage virtualization operating system, SVOS as you know it, that has been engineered in Japan. But the portfolio expanded considerably beyond that in the last number of years. And now, as we've just referenced, it's expanding even further.
And I think one of the big differences, Tim, is that it used to be too that engineering and product decisions were made in Japan, and then many years ago, HDS sold it. I know some of the folks in the peanut gallery back there have a lot of frequent flyer miles, because now it's much more of a bring market requirements, work with the team on what to build, not just take it, whatever is built, and sell it. Good news is they built good stuff, but now it's much more iterative process about what is needed for the market.
Great, thanks.
Can you talk about how the conversation starts with your customers, or where that entry point is with customers? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I mean, so
sure.
And as part of that, are most of the customers that are looking at Pentaho or the Lumada, now Insight Group, are they existing HDS customers or Hitachi customers that have then kind of branched out? So kind of two different questions, but interrelated.
Yeah. There is, historically, Tim, there has been a bifurcation there. So Pentaho historically calls on a different set of buyers in many of the same enterprises, right? They're doing different types of projects, right? You're speaking potentially more so to the lines of business around what they're trying to do in terms of leveraging and monetizing, all their different data warehouses and data feeds and so forth. Hitachi Data Systems is very well established in the data center, right? So we're talking to the IT organization. Now, Hitachi Data Systems, too, has been making a pivot towards the line of business through necessity, because the budget and the decision-making has shifted over the last number of years, outside of IT. But there are different types of projects, right? There's enterprise application deployment versus somewhat unique at times analytics projects that are taking place. Now, in terms of a go-to-market, getting back to your question, what's changing I think we can now expand our story because it potentially encompasses both. And so we still have a specialty go-to-market organization. We have a specialty sales team, and we have specialized marketing as well associated with our analytics business. However, our general sales organization, which numbers over 1,000 worldwide, is speaking to the entire portfolio because we have the relationships at the higher levels in these large companies. And so we need to speak to the full complement of capabilities and how they operate together. And so it's the complete picture with some specialization within is fundamentally how we're going to market as Hitachi Vantara. Right. And now, again, sometimes our IP and some of our products and solutions get embedded into larger solutions that Hitachi may be taking to market, or they may get embedded into offerings and solutions that our partners may be taking to market. We work with all the large GSIs as well, who are leveraging our expanded portfolio. Does that answer your question?
Well, I'm still trying to, and maybe you'll get into this, but I'm still trying to understand kind of the type, and this goes to the conversation we were having at dinner last night, but just like where the entry point is in terms of the conversation, whether it's more business-centric or whether it's more kind of speeds and feeds technology-centric, and how that's evolving too.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely moving to more business-centric. And so our global account managers and our senior sales executives are having the business conversation. The analytics conversations, I'll be perfectly honest with you, we have thousands and thousands and thousands of downloads of our developer edition of Pentaho, or have had in the last few years. And so that's a technical audience that is, first of all, dabbling in this space.
Wait, you're saying that the analytics conversation is a technical conversation, not a business conversation?
Both. It's both. Because the conversation needs to happen I'm a consumer of this technology as the CMO, trust me. I'm the one who's involved I'm actually a user of our Pentaho analytics within my organization. The business conversation kicks everything off. But what I'm saying is the technical community within these large enterprises, this is just our experience, are heavy influencers on the vendor selection. And it has to do with ease of use, ease of deployment, and also mapping to the business requirement. But it does start with the business requirement, there's no question about that. And so our Pentaho team are specialists and experts in that space. They can have the business conversation too, but we won't lie about the fact that there is a heavy technical element to an analytics dialogue with a large enterprise.
I would say where the conversation between the business and technology ends up talking around data. If we get the conversation around data, that's our best entry conversation. I think you'll see us talk more about how we connect some of those pieces because there's probably some extremely verticalized companies that go to market a bit more business oriented than we can. I think we're really good at the technology side, but when we can map that business need to a data story and how you can take it through its life cycle, that's the entry point that's working, I think, best.
Okay. How are we doing on time?
Good, 20 minutes.
So to Bob's point, right, we're focusing now more on the data challenge that companies may have. We don't lead with a dialogue or a discussion around a specific product, right? Because our scope has expanded to such a degree and we've added the expertise to encompass broader, bigger business challenges. It's data-driven innovations that extend beyond simply the data center, go into the line of business, can go off into, the edge, as we like to call it, to the machines that these companies may be deploying in some fashion and marrying it all together. But one of the things that we talk a lot about at Hitachi and also Hitachi Vantara is a double bottom line. And so you hear about social innovation. It's a reality. It's what we live, which is, yes, we want to benefit businesses, but at the same time, this is 100-year vision for Hitachi, which is we're trying to benefit society at the same time, right? And so these are the types of bigger solutions that we're trying to bring to market at the same time. Now, let me just talk a little bit about our footprint as Hitachi Vantara. And so, and this is exclusive to Vantara. And so we have our own distribution centers across all the major geographies. We are doing business directly in over 100 countries. We have our own dedicated call centers. We have our own factories. Our design facilities, to the earlier question, we work with our colleagues in Japan, but we also have design centers here in the greater Boston area, in the Bay Area, as well as the UK. And we've added Florida as well, because that's where our analytics development team is based. And so it's a pretty global organization. We've got, depending on the latest count, well over or approaching 10,000 employees worldwide. And so this is, again, to show you the scope of our capability. It's not simply just a sales distribution arm, which is what Hitachi Data Systems was known for maybe 25, 30 years ago. It's a fully integrated cross-functional organization at this point. I'll just fly through some of these slides now. I think many of you are well aware of our presence in the Global 100. We've got literally over 10,000 customers. If you look across the portfolio, core infrastructure, as you're probably well aware, we've got some of the leading brands in the world. Our analytics portfolio too, there's thousands of users of that technology. That business is growing double-digit, quarter on quarter, year on year. It's doing really, really well. And then same goes for our content portfolio, which is extremely strategic to everything we do. What you're going to hear about later is how do we tap into some of the other elements of the portfolio to strengthen our core infrastructure portfolio going forward. And it manifested itself in some of the announcements that you saw last month. Well, I'll just fly through this. Last 9 months, so we announced Hitachi Vantara as a new entity. And again, this is not just it was just not, we're going to paint the company a different color. It's true integration. Right? These were 3 businesses that are functionally integrated and working towards the same goal at this point. And so, yes, we are trying to maintain our momentum as a great place to work, but also a place that's innovating. And I know, mixed opinions about Gartner and Magic Quadrants and so forth, but we did have some good recognition, particularly in our core business in the last 9 months as well. And I will say, love them or hate them, that process is pretty rigorous when you go through these MQs with these guys. And so again, we'll talk more about that in a moment, but we're trying to maintain our momentum going forward. This is, like I said, it's not just a new paint job on an existing company. This is true integration, and that digital transformation that I talked about that our customers are going through, we're going through as well. And so this is a change happening within our company, and it's going to be ongoing. This is not a one and done. The other thing that I am aware of is the fact that Hitachi Data Systems, multi-decade brand, right? Pentaho in the analytics world, pretty well-known brand. We're creating a new brand in Hitachi Vantara. We're not going to establish, a strong brand presence in mere months. This is going to be a multi-year endeavor as well, is to create the Hitachi, not only brand awareness, but also the understanding of what Hitachi Vantara represents, right? And so it's events like this, but also worldwide. We're doing a lot of work to try to get an understanding of why Hitachi Vantara, why does it exist, and what can it do for me. This is going to be a journey for us going forward. We talked about the importance of data. Now, here, I'll touch on this a little bit, and I think the rest of the day is really going to be talking about the right-hand side of this slide. But I talked earlier about OT systems. Again, this is going to get at sort of the vision of all the pieces that we're working on. IT systems that you're very familiar with, human-generated, business-generated data. Then you've got the machine-generated data, right? All of those hundreds of machines that we manufacture and companies like us manufacture across all industries throughout the world are creating data, right? And so what we're working on is how do you bridge the two? And so this is color-coded in a way to showcase, okay, where's Hitachi Vantara spending their energy? And where is there some potential leverage from the rest of Hitachi Limited? And that's in the red. And so just at a very macro level, what underpins all of this is IT infrastructure. And we call the platform core. This is roughly analogous to the IoT platform that we talked about earlier. But the definition of what that is frankly evolving a little bit. Then you have to connect to the edge, right? The edge devices touch and talk to the machines on the left-hand side that are generating data through sensors, et cetera. You need a gateway to run analytics, and you can build applications on top of that. And so there are services involved as well, that we can bring to the table to deliver to the IT or the data center side of the house and vice versa. But what I will say is that one of the things that's happening, and this is what you guys might be seeing as well, is everything in the middle, the IT, systems to process information, systems to store information, systems to analyze information, and systems to report back to a person or another machine is all moving to the edge, right? And we're in another one of these cycles where everything is centralized, decentralized, centralized, decentralized, right? Now, and there's some schools of thought, and I've even posited this in the last couple of years, is everything's becoming a data center, right? Your automobile is going to be a rolling data center, right? Your transfer station as part of your electrical grid is going to be a remote data center in some fashion because it's going to have some elements of all of this that you see there, right? Why ship, right, terabytes of data over the wire back to some central location for analysis and then send it back, right? So and this is what we are all collectively learning about, is what level of infrastructure analysis, et cetera, is needed in these edge devices, in these edge cases, right? And so we're going to continue to support both because I think there's a bridging that needs to happen. By the way, there's IT systems here. That could be in a public cloud, or that could be in a private cloud, by the way, but in some sort of centralized fashion. But you got to bridge the two, and we're innovating across both ends. And so what we're looking at in terms of long-term vision is how do we support some of these capabilities, off in the edge, right? What kind of storage do you need at the edge? What type of data analysis do you need at the edge, right? What's appropriate? And I think it obviously varies by use case and by industry. But this is sort of the technology vision stack. And then I'm not going to spend much time on this either, but this is the portfolio as we look at it today, the Hitachi Vantara portfolio, right? And so we have a full suite of infrastructure solutions below. Hybrid systems, all-flash array, objects, solutions, converge, hyperconverge, et cetera, right? And then you've got systems management, right, that runs on top of it, orchestration of services, storage management, et cetera, data protection, data operations, right, that what we call data operations, replication, synchronization, et cetera, and then analytic insights that you can run on top of that. And that is inclusive of file, block, object type data or systems. And so what we're going to do today is I think we're going to dive into infrastructure as well as systems management to some degree, for the most part, as that was the focus of this afternoon. And so it's a full portfolio. Like I said earlier, there has been some questions about our commitment to probably this lower layer, right? We've talked a lot at Hitachi Vantara to the market around a lot of the new things that we're doing, but they are not instead of, they are in addition to, right? And so I think that's a really important point to get across. fly through some of this. Oh, and so one of the things that we're looking at is, how do we bring that full suite of capabilities, up and down the entire stack to the market? And so we do offer all the infrastructure that you see there as a service. We have a fairly robust, sizable managed services business as well. We're working on, and we've announced what we call the Smart Data Center, right? Which is we will run a full data center for you that encompasses a lot of these automated capabilities. And we are embedding actually some of the AI and ML from other parts of Hitachi into that. We're piloting Smart Data Center now as we speak. And then we've got some technology called digital evidence management that we're providing and supporting a lot of police stations and police forces around the world. That's another nascent business for us that we are growing. And then over time, we're going to look at other solutions and offerings. Again, this is a solutions and services portfolio to take that technology stack that we showed you earlier to the market. One of the other things that we're doing, again, reiterating some of the same points, for cost optimization, we've got managed services. We've introduced and we've recently announced, some cloud-based container management capability to support DevOps, et cetera. This third one is one that this is still a future. We're still looking at, okay, what type of IoT-oriented services solutions can we take to the market? Again, this is more go-to-market. How do we monetize the technology and bring it to market? And then finally, I think actually I'm pretty good on time. We talk about this a lot, as sort of a wrapper for like all the stuff we do. SEAM, right? So what are we doing with data? Fundamentally, right? We're storing it, we're managing, protecting it, store. Then we enrich. Right, there's a lot of work that we're doing, and particularly driven out of our work here in Waltham around enriching data with metadata and providing context, right, for intelligent analysis later, and fundamentally activating that to some degree, right? Integrate, orchestrate, disparate silos of data potentially. And then fundamentally, as a business is concerned, is to monetize that in some fashion, right? We, as Hitachi Vantara, are trying to do this ourselves, right? And I think every company out there is trying to do that. How do I monetize all the data that I've got at my disposal, right? And one of the things that we're doing right now is there's enrichment and then there's activation happening in process. We are a large global company with lots of data. So how do we monetize that in some fashion to maybe attract new customers, go after new markets, et cetera. But this sort of encapsulates what we are trying to do around data and the technology that we're engineering. And so one of our core beliefs is that data is at the center of everything. And one of the things that we talk a lot about too is the fact that we don't want to own the data, right? It's your data, right? And so you can maintain and keep your data wherever you need to keep it. Now, this concept resonates very strongly with large enterprises around the world, which historically have been our customers. This is a really important point that relates to security and a lot of these other things that you guys are very familiar with. Obviously, we believe the data is going to outlive everybody else and every technology and application that goes around it. And so bottom line benefit around operational efficiency and top line benefit around helping you grow your business. Again, back to this monetization and activation of data. These are our tenets, right? This is essentially what we're trying to enable, is a modern infrastructure enabling that digital workplace, right? And different parts of the portfolio enable this, right? And digital workplace, our content portfolio, and the enterprise mobility capabilities that we provide there are key to that. Business insight, right? The analytics, the acquisitions that we made in that space. And as we move forward, right, Internet of Things, which is really still, we believe, early days. But we've been trying to get a head start on that. And obviously, we've done a fair amount of innovation there to understand, okay, how is that going to be deployed? Right? It is a technology disruption. It is not a market in and of itself.